Okay, we're live. Yes. Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone, and good morning. Clearly, I've just woken up, but when you come here for the tea time with Tia, sometimes you're going to get a hot mess, and that's what I certainly am this morning. But you know what? We all are in this quarantine time. So, yeah, who cares? But good morning. It's been a little while since I've done a tea time. There hasn't been a whole lot there hasn't been a whole lot out there to do. Um, Recently, I was talking with Kelly, who is an associate of ours at Geek Vibes, and she was saying that we could do like a quick trailer review. I know that Juwan and AJ did one for the new Steve Carell movie, Space Force, I think it's called. So we may do one for the second season of Hannah. They released a teaser trailer, so we may do that a little later. But this is Tea Time with Tia. And speaking of Kelly, I told her that I would mention this. So for my birthday, which was March 13th, she got me a lovely elephant mug that you may have seen in previous videos. And it's my favorite mug. It has this little compartment here where you can put your tea bag in once it's done steeping. And I love it because I really like elephants. But I have cats, and I was trying to reach over one of them a few weeks ago, and I bumped into a chair and it knocked over the mug and completely broke it. I was heartbroken, not only because it really was my favorite mug, but also I have this thing that if someone gets me a gift, I hate if something happens to it because I feel like that's, I don't want to say disrespectful because it wasn't intentional, but it's kind of like, I don't know, not cherishing it as much. I don't know. I have this thing like it broke me. I broke the mug and it broke me. So I went on Amazon and I bought a new one. So this is not the original that Kelly got me, but it is the exact same one. And yeah, so. It's actually not tea this morning. It's coffee because it's the morning. But anyway, you tuned in because you saw that the title said 2015's The Program. And you probably never have heard of this movie because I hadn't either. But it's on Amazon Prime and I decided to watch it yesterday. So it's a sports movie. And I'm not the biggest fan of sports, honestly. I played a lot of sports when I was a kid. I was probably in almost every sport, softball, gymnastics, soccer, basketball, swimming, tennis, ice skating. I was in a lot of sports as a kid, but I didn't keep up with that because I just really wasn't a fan and I don't really go to any sporting events. I do not watch the Super Bowl other than for the commercials. Although I'm a New Yorker, so I obviously rep the Yankees, even though I have no idea who's on the team right now. But if you ask me, do I rep Yankees? Who would win versus them or Boston or the Mets? I'm going to say Yankees. But that's besides the point. I really don't like sports, but I love sports movies because they always seem to be inspirational. Remember the Titans is one of the best movies of all time. Last year, I saw Ford versus Ferrari, which absolutely deserved the Oscar nod, and Christian Bale, even though Joaquin Phoenix 100% deserved to win his Oscar, Christian Bale could have won over him because that's how good he was in that movie. So the program is about Lance Armstrong. And no matter if you are a sports fan or not a sports fan, you know who the hell Lance Armstrong is. It said 7-time winner of the Tour de France, the Tour de France. And, just a huge public figure. He was with Sheryl Crow at some point, and everyone knew who Lance Armstrong was. And I think that's why it was so huge when you found out that he was taking sports enhancement drugs. And we actually looked up yesterday. He had to return all 7 medals because he won 7 times. I think the first American to do that. And he had to return all of his medals for the Tour de France. He had to return all of his medals for the Olympics. And it's like, dude. And you hear a lot of sports players taking sports enhancement drugs. I mean, I remember, 10 years ago or something, they revealed that half of the freaking baseball players were on it. I can't think of any that comes to mind right now, but I remember when that happened. I mean, South Park made a freaking episode about it, which they make an episode about everything. But so the program, and I have my phone right now, which is a new phone, and I love it. I have my phone right now because I have to tell. So it was a 2015 biographical drama film about Lance Armstrong. It was directed by Stephen Frears, and it starred Ben Foster as Armstrong and Chris O'Dowd as journalist David Walsh. And in the movie, David Walsh definitely, I think, had a huge part in exposing Lance Armstrong and his drug use. Who else is in it? I don't know how to pronounce some of these names. Jesse Flemings was Floyd Landis, who was another cyclist, and he was really good. Jesse Flemings seems to be in a lot of things, and we don't really mention him as, actors in stuff, but he certainly pops up a lot, and I think he was really good in this. Dustin Hoffman was also in it, and Lee Pace, which Lee Pace had a very short role, but his part in this reminded me so much of his part in *Halt and Catch Fire* as Joe McMillan. I half expected him to start trying to sell a computer to someone. But anyway, I would be very surprised if Lance Armstrong hadn't tried to, sue this film or something, because he was shown as an absolute psychopath in this movie. So you get Lance Armstrong, and in the beginning, this whole thing where he's obviously gearing up for the Tour de France, and he's told by numerous people, yeah, you're a good cyclist, but you're not a winner. You're a good, say, one day racer, but you're not good for this whole entire thing, because the Tour de France is 2 weeks or something like that. And they're you don't have what it takes to win. And obviously, sports competitors, they're competitors, so they want to win. And Lance really has that drive, at least in the movie, to win. But then he gets diagnosed with testicular cancer. And that whole thing at first, the beginning of the movie a lot is flossed over, because I think they were trying to get to the actual part of the movie. So they kind of rapid fired, just to show you this is how we got to this one part. So there's that. So he has testicular cancer, and then he's obviously very determined to make it, to continue, beat this, And in the movie, he came off so insincere, because he kept using his cancer fund and kept, going on stage and promoting his Live Strong or Lance Strong or whatever it was, and had all these people who were cancer survivors who looked up to him, all these kids. He'd go to the hospital, but he was doing that as almost a, look at me, I'm this, this accomplishment, story where I beat cancer and now I'm winning the Tour de France and look how awesome I am. And it really just felt like he was conning everyone, he was conning the world. And he really looked like a psychopath. And then in it, so obviously it's almost like a team effort. It reminded me a little of Ford versus Ferrari, because there wasn't just, say, one racer. It was multiple racers for the American team, but he was like kind of always like strong arming them into letting him win. Like there were several times where he's biking, right? And he would like go up next to someone, like put his hand on their back, and he's like, why are you saying this to the reporters? You know, that's a mistake. Stop speaking to the reporters because, you know, you're making us look bad and you don't want to know what the consequences are. That was really creepy. I mean, I told my boyfriend Paulie that I felt that Lance was 2 seconds away from ordering hits out on people the entire movie. That's how it felt like to me. It was very strange. Sorry, everyone. I keep looking at the battery power, and I'm like, should I go get my charger? No, we're good. We're good. Anyway, so that felt really strange. Ben Foster did a good job, again, in making Lance Armstrong look like a complete and utter psychopath. And yeah, so the whole time he is taking so many drugs. I mean, and at some point you sit there and you're like, I thought the sport was supposed to be about sports and about working out and working hard. And really it seems like it's like, oh, you want to be a competitor? Well, you got to sit here in this bed for hours with an IV in your arm. And, you know, we're going to take out our blood and then we're going to put our blood back so that we can pass these tests. And so weird. And during that, so Lance is just like, I felt like he was getting high off of winning. He was just so obsessed. And so hang on, I got to bring up the person's name again because I completely forgot. Jesse Plemons' character, Floyd Landis. Floyd comes onto the scene. He's another cyclist, and he is just really happy to be there at first. He's just like, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes to be a great cyclist, which means, you know, in Lance's mind, well, it means you got to start doing all these drugs and shit because we're winners here on this team. But it was all about always letting Lance win. And then finally, after Lance decides to retire, is when Floyd wins his version of the Tour de France, but then he gets caught in taking these performance enhancement drugs. And he kind of looks to Lance for help, and Lance is kind of like, what do you want me to do for you? You got caught. He just seemed like the godfather or something of this, like, of cycling and drug use in this. It was so crazy how they made him seem. I mean, and this is someone who, and they showed in the movie, this is someone who was well respected amongst the world, was well respected amongst America. Everyone like looked towards him. They were inspired by him. And he was kind of like letting everyone down, cheating, and also just, again, like being a complete dick and being a complete psychopath. I have Paulie here right now. Wasn't Lance Armstrong in the movie a bit of a psychopath?
He was too obsessive over performance enhancement drugs and winning.
He was definitely too obsessed with all of that. And so at some point in the movie, again, because you have Floyd, and at some point Floyd just gets fed up because beforehand it was about, you know, saving face, and he also was trying to deny that he was taking these drugs. And I think when he saw that Lance was not going to come and help him, he decided to expose the whole thing. And that, on top of the journalist, David Walsh, I think his name was again. Yeah, David Walsh. You know, because David Walsh was from day one like really skeptical about the whole thing, because he kept saying, he's like, you know, how does Lance go from this guy who wasn't, you know, he was a one-day racer, you know, I've been following him and all that. Thank you for spraying the house, Paulie. You know, he's a one-day racer, blah blah blah. You know, he had testicular cancer. You know, how is he suddenly, like, just a few months later after his surgery, suddenly like winning all of these races where he wouldn't have even won that before he had cancer. So he was very suspicious since day one. But people kind of at that point, since Lance was such a huge figure, were really like against David trying to unearth all this stuff. They're like, why is it so important to you? Why are you trying to essentially destroy Lance's career? You know, can't you just be happy? But, you know, he was like, David said at some point, he was like, I love this sport. He's like, and Lance is ruining it. So it's like, I understand that. So on top of like David's pushing and Floyd coming out and exposing it, Lance, you know, had no other choice but to kind of face the music. And there was at some scene where they were pretty much telling him like, you're gonna have a lifelong ban. And I really thought that Lance was going to lose it, like really lose it. Like there was moments where you felt like he was going to break, because he won the 7 Tour de France, you know, events, retired for about 4 years before then deciding that he wanted to go back because he was such like an intense competitor. And they said like, why would you do that? Just, you know, go out as a winner. And he competed and he got third, which, you know, to me, I'm like, third is great out of how many? But for him, you know, his ego, you could see he was just shot over it. And it's like, I feel like that final race really also kind of like screwed him over. So it reminded me when, and I can't remember now with the movie if they actually went through with the lifelong ban, but it reminded me of, I recently watched I, Tonya, when they did a lifelong ban for Tonya Harding because of the things that she did, which I won't even get into that because I have very strong opinions, but I will reserve myself. But yeah, so the program, I don't want to say it's definitely not like one of the best sports movies that I've seen, but certainly not the worst. It, you know, at some point, like Lance just feels like this cartoon character almost. I was talking about with Paulie and we said like this guy feels like like not only him, but there was another character in it who was ridiculous. I think Ferrari, like the doctor, felt like a freaking Marvel villain. This was apparently their origin story. Like we watched Joker, we saw his origin story. This was like Lance's origin story to becoming a supervillain. That's what he felt like. And maybe as the public, we never knew that because we perceived him just as this, you know, competitor at first, this athlete to, you know, look up to. And then when he, you know, came out and it was that he was using these performance enhancement drugs, it was disappointing. Obviously, it was like, really? Come on. You know, something like that, always you sit there and go, man, I was so proud of you and look at what you did now. I mean, at this point, it's like, who else do we have? The only like good one was Michael Phelps. But I don't care. He smoked pot. There's no big deal with that. But yeah, so I don't know if that's how Lance was in real life or they just really decided to over exaggerate him in the movie. If Ben Foster just, that was the way that he decided to go, but he did a good job in it. I, again, don't know how accurate any of that is. I don't keep up with cycling and I didn't keep up really with who Lance was as a person. So I don't know, but as far as the movie goes, Ben Foster did a great job in really just kind of making you look there and go, my God, Lance is crazy. Oh God, what's his name? Sorry, everyone. Chris O'Dowd, again, who played David Walsh. If you don't know who Chris O'Dowd is, I don't know if you can like see that. Yeah, so he did a good job. He did a good job in his role. I feel like we don't see him in a lot of things, so he did really good. As I said before, Lee Pace had a very small role. Nothing really to chew on there, but if you're a fan of *Halt and Catch Fire*, he really had his like Joe McMillan personality tuned up. And Dustin Hoffman was in it, but very small. Again, like, you know, Dustin Hoffman's a great actor, and there really wasn't anything for him to chew on there. It felt like how, if you guys are watching right now, Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, Nathan Lane is in it, and we all know how fantastic Nathan Lane is, but there just doesn't seem anything right now for him to shine in. So that's how I felt with Dustin Hoffman in this. It's like you get this really big character, actor's really big name, and it really was for a role that you could have had anyone in, but that's besides the point. So yeah, the program, I would give it a watch if I were you, especially since we're quarantined. You're probably running out of things to view. It's on Amazon Prime and also Tubi. I think I just saw Tubi TV, which is a very underrated streaming service. It's free, guys. You can, free to sign up. You don't have to put a credit card in anywhere. It's free. But you can go on there and watch it if you really are kind of interested in seeing pretty much how much of a psychopath Lance Armstrong is. I mean, I know I keep saying that, but honestly, I was very taken back. If this is how Lance Armstrong is in real life, yeah, definitely not someone who you want representing your country, someone representing, cancer survivors. Like, there was at some point they showed a real life footage of this guy who was like, Lance Armstrong beat cancer and he won the Tour de France, and I have cancer or had cancer, and it just means a lot to me. And I'm like, man, all these people who it meant a lot to them, and he just betrayed all of them. And it's like, the sport is supposed to be won by athleticism, not by you using performance enhancing drugs. That's just ridiculous. That's not the point of the sport. Then it's, none of it is fair. And his whole reasoning was, well, everyone's doping, so how can I win against all these people who are also doping? And that's a bigger conversation. And I think I saw that they've tightened the restrictions on everything, so that's good. Besides that, I don't really keep up with cycling or the Tour de France and know anything else about it. But yeah, so the program, definitely an interesting movie. Definitely something that if you are not knowing what to watch, I would definitely check it out. Why not? You got probably an hour or two to spare, so put it on. Let me know what you think about it. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, TFAB. And then, of course, you can follow us on geekvibesnation.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all that good stuff. So make sure you check us out. We have a lot of great videos. As I said earlier, Jawan and AJ, two representatives of ours, did a quick review on the trailer for Space Force. And perhaps later, Kelly and I will be doing a review for the teaser trailer for Hannah Season 2. So make sure you check all that out. Like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I shall see you later. End stream.